The idea of this series is to trigger an exchange of viewpoints amongst experts like yourselves, and see how we are placed as a nation to seize the opportunity in these emerging tech areas.
So, and the framework which I'd like to introduce, I'll take a few minutes to introduce, is in number one, where there's a big contribution in the EV space globally and in India when it comes to batteries. How do we get the batteries? How do we install the batteries? How do we monitor the batteries? How do we optimize the batteries? And there's a lot of focus on batteries along with the powertrains needed there, be it the truck industry, car industry, or the two-wheelers, or whatever not. And then the second area is on charging infrastructure and related EMOB services, right? There are a lot of services coming in the private charging space, public charging space, we call it the EMSP providers, etc., etc. And there is a lot of focus when it comes to private charging, public charging, and between hybrid charging as well. And in the technology elements there is a lot of focus when it comes to what kind of superchargers, etc., etc. There are many, many technologies in the charging space. Then when it comes to the third area is remanufacturing, refurbishing, and recycling. This is a space I truly believe is very important for India and also for world around. When we are extremely good in managing this, in many other areas we've done this in the past, where we take a battery out and we remanufacturing it, take out the modules, put all set of new models, and then use it. Refurbishing is change a couple of modules and you make it work again and bring it back to the state of health as needed. And then the third one is recycling the batteries, which is very important here. A lot of regulations are coming here. Even beyond regulations, this is our responsibility. Going back to the previous statement, it is the future, sustainable future which we create. Recycling is another important element there. Number 4 is repurpose. Okay, how do I get the better juice out of the battery? Right? How do I make sure that the state of health drops below 80%, which I cannot use it for the first purpose? How can I create a second life for those batteries? And then digitalization to decarbonization, right? There is a lot of focus on digital, creating services, creating ecosystems, creating platforms. There are many, many things happening in the digital world. And I truly believe digitalization this time will be an accelerator when it comes to these technologies. And then last but one is create partnerships. I mean, we have Professor here and we have quite a lot of partnerships with the government, partnerships with companies, partnerships with startups. There are many possible partnerships in this ecosystem. And yesterday we were talking about in our company, European Union has made a lot of changes as late as last week, and that leads a lot of participation to create that charging infrastructure in Europe, not only for the cars, but also for the trucks and buses. And number 7 is people. People is the center of it all. And I really appreciate GTX for taking this opportunity to call us together. And I believe, and I'm sure you also believe, there's going to be a lot of change when it comes to relearning competences, acquiring new competences and skills. It's not only skill, but also the will to change as well.
The picture I would like to paint for 2030 from an EV ecosystem perspective would be, from a techno-commercial point of view, a digitally driven shared risk ecosystem which drives all the participants or the stakeholders in the value chain to be part of the TCO paradigm, where we all work together to reduce the total cost of ownership of EVs and make it more affordable and sustainable.
TCO is what is going to sell the EV rather than the acquisition cost. Acquisition cost is going to be higher than the diesel, no doubt about it. So TCO is going to be key. And for TCO to happen, you need to have a couple of partnerships. One maybe with finance teams who can, provide better way of innovative financing models, or maybe initial government incentives to start the entire, the EV progress in that country. So what we have seen is there are 4 major blocks that is coming in the TCO. One is definitely the acquisition cost, which is coming in a big way. That is contributing to because today's acquisition cost somewhere between 5x to 6x. That has to come down to at least 2.5 to 3x. And then the second big area is, of course, the charging infrastructure, which is required to take this to the next step. The third is the financial model the financing model will become a very key important aspect for popularizing the EV. And last, obviously, is the government.
I think automobiles have been an integral part of any country's economic development. And talk about Japan or Germany or US. So you have those big grants which are well established and which has created lots of jobs and economic opportunities. And I think India, in some sense, have, let's say, Tatas and Mahindras, but I think there's a lot more potential. So if I look at it from that perspective, at least India would need 50 unicorns from a well-to-wheel perspective, if I talk about it. So starting from, let's say, lithium-ion refining to sort of OEMs, at every step you would need unicorns who would drive newer ways of working, cutting edge technologies, and sort of expanding the horizons.
So that's the first challenge we see, that most of the cars right now are moving towards hybrid and hydrogen technology, and that's what the trend shows. Electrification will be slower in terms of energy adoption, and alternative methods of propulsion will be more favored in the next coming years. So charging infrastructure growth, which was supposed to be driven by the four-wheeler growth, is being hampered. Also, the isolation of two-wheeler market in EV right now in India is one of the major problems, where two-wheeler market is majorly isolated towards electric only, and four-wheeler market is diverging towards multiple different folds.
The whole ecosystem, in fact, the vehicle customer tuning to the specifications of the vehicle, and overall the infrastructure altogether is all roaming all around the success of new chemistries and how the battery is being developed. Primarily the cost, specifications, everything is being driven by batteries now. And batteries is primarily driven by chemistries and advancements.
There is technology, and technology needs development, but at the same time, it has to merge with the right business model to have a good market feasibility, right? So new business models will evolve, and why I'm saying that is, if you look at the car today, the EV itself, right, it might be a commodity. The car itself might be a commodity. It might be actually a huge, complex software system with battery and motors and wheels attached, right? And this is what will change the way the overall automobile market will evolve. So business models will change, I guess. And for example, instead of using battery as a part of the car, it can be taken out and say battery as a service, and then that will probably reduce the initial cost of the car itself when an end consumer buys the car. So that business models will evolve. Second thing we see is the ecosystem will also evolve, because when we look at the EVs, it's not just a car; it is also an energy source. It is integrated with the grid. You can take power from the grid, you can give back the power and stuff like that. And other thing which someone touched here is how green is the grid, how smart is the grid, right? All these things has to evolve. It's not a stand-alone system.
Now this disruption we used to talk about is going to impact, and the maximum disruption is going to be in terms of the battery storage and the energy transition, which will also be coupled with the changes in the mobility and how to drive the mobility with the clean energy sources.
See, consumers or any progress is all about we human beings becoming lazier, and the supplier or the manufacturer or anybody who's able to provide that opportunity to us, we actually go and adopt. For life to become more enjoyable, or let's say our endeavor is to work less. So anything that enables this requirement shifts the technology, or let's say it is adopted. Now think about an EV and an ICE. A simple fact that one doesn't have to go to a gas station to fill gas. can be a big game changer.
There are definitely some very positive things which are happening. At the same time, there are a lot of challenges that needs to be taken care of. So we should be aspirational, but at the same time, we should be pragmatic. And a lot of these challenges can also be solved by empowering academia and also enabling the relationship between academia and industry.
Which is needed. Consumer needs to be educated on the total cost of ownership concept, which is very, very important in that. And to my understanding, the tipping point has already reached to the two-wheeler and three-wheeler segment, and we make 80% of our automobile manufacture is two-wheelers and three-wheelers. So things are moving forward. It's only a question of four-wheeler passenger vehicle where there are some efforts are needed for educating the passenger, and our subsidy, direct and indirect fiscal incentive policies are also designed for that, whether the FAME or other policies.
Both industry as well as government are putting out the efforts, but at the end of the day, this is really going to be driven by customers' own experience, how they are going to learn about the safety and the usage of electric vehicles and the total cost of ownership. Much similar to what happened with refrigerators and microwaves when they were first introduced. Microwaves are not particularly safe to be used in terms if the customer is not educated, but with prior experience and with the wide awareness from the people surrounding them, it becomes safer for them to use.
It's huge possibilities of potential usage beyond 75%, primarily for the energy storage, stationary storage systems. Like mostly some part can actually get into recyclability to extract minerals, lithium and metals. Plus some part actually can get into typical storage systems like commercial residential storage systems, and even for small UPS purposes.
Hydrogen is not considered as it's considered as an energy by itself. Hydrogen is considered as energy by itself. You can, if you have a daylight, you can store it as a hydrogen more efficient than storing it as an electric power in batteries and retake the electric power back from hydrogen.
One of the challenges of residual value, especially let's say more prevalent for larger vehicles starting from three-wheeler, four-wheeler or bus trucks, is to find a way in which you have a residual value that can suffice some of the requirements or needs to control or minimize financing risks, and at the same time be able to have a value that can be digestible from a downstream customer from an energy storage point of view. So finding that right value that can reduce the TCO and also have an indirect benefit.
I think there is a deficit in terms of let's say talent pool when we talk about this specific skills, let's say cell chemistry, the entire battery aspects. So it is there, it is available, but if you have to realize the 2030 vision, is it enough? No, I think that is one area that we would need more people.
Industry, the policymakers, and the academia will have to come together to kind of build these partnerships, like you mentioned, very, very important. It was lovely having all of you, and I certainly learned again a lot from within the industry, and I hope each one of you have learned something as well. And we will keep this dialogue on. We actually have a technology game changers group which is on LinkedIn. We will share with you a link of that. You can join that group and participate actively, contribute, so that we can learn from one another. We'll come back to you with more such sessions, on future technologies. Thank you so much indeed for being here, taking time, and contributing to the discussion.